Speaking of the past, openings are important, and we're going to listen to a few great song openings. We'll start with Beethoven's Fifth, as song openings go. Okay.
You know, what's so interesting about that is one of the things I often say is that great music, and this is one of the big differences between most pop music, not all, but most pop music and classical music. Great music is really, I often say, about becoming and not being. And what I mean by that is, it's not so much about what an idea is when you first hear it, what it is, being. It's about what it can become over the course of a piece of music. In and of itself is not so great. What's great is what happens to it as the piece progresses. And this is when we talked about narrative. In and of itself, that would not be famous. Now, what happens, which is interesting, is what is that idea? It's 3 repeated notes and a leap down. Then you do the same thing, but you start it lower. 3 repeated notes and a leap down. Now, that already tells us that the idea can happen on any note, but it's always going to be, we think, 3 repeated notes and a leap down. Then 3 repeated notes. But now we don't have any chords underneath it. Now you don't realize it, but that could either be this, a major chord, or a minor chord. And it will change over the course of the piece. Now we've heard it so many times, we don't realize there's a question implied. But what's really interesting is after we go unison, then we do it again. Now we go, we put a chord under it. That's a development. But now we go, still 3 repeated notes, but a leap down, but a different one. But everything is that idea. 3 repeated. 3 repeated. Then we do it here. 3 repeated and always 3 repeated. But now, if our idea is ba-ba-ba-bum, what if we add one more note and we make it ba-ba-ba-ba-ba? Ba-ba-ba-ba. Now, wait a minute. That's upside down. See, we're already developing. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Now we take ba-ba-ba-bum, add one note. We make it ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. And how do we finish the sentence? Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Add one more. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. So already we've told a story, a narrative in words. From 4 notes, ba-ba-ba-bum, add one more, ba-ba-ba-bum-bum, add one more, ba-ba-ba-bum, bum, bum. And if we had a 5-hour radio show, that's only the first 3 steps of a 20-part story, all based on that idea. But once again, what makes it a great beginning is not what it is, but what it can become. And that's what makes the piece great. Not what it is at the beginning, but the story it tells over time. It's like, it's not the first date, it's the woman you marry. It's what you discover after years and years and years. So it's a long story. It's not just the beginning.
Moving to another genre, if you will, Eminem's Sing for the Moment.
These ideas are nightmares to white parents whose worst fear is a child with dyed hair and who likes earrings. Like whatever they say has no bearing. It's so scary in a house that allows no swearing to see him walking around with his headphones blaring.
What am I hearing there?
Well, one of the things I think that's really interesting about that is, first of all, it's a testament to the all-pervasiveness of pop culture. In other words, in a way, what that reminds me of is I did a program at the National Gallery of Canada. Now, this sounds like it's not related to this, but it really is. And it was called Ave Maria. And what I did was I took 3, Ave Maria is a Gregorian chant, an old chant from the 13th century. And I took 3 different settings of the same Gregorian chant, one from the original chant, one by Palestrina, then move forward Victoria all the way up to Stravinsky, and I paired them with 3 paintings of the Virgin Mary from very different periods of time. And one of the things that's interesting is, because everybody knows Bible stories in those days, the sort of universal terms of reference were Bible stories. Everybody could do a different version of the Virgin Mary because everybody knew all the other versions of the Virgin Mary. What's cool about Eminem is this is a takeoff on Aerosmith.
Yep.
This is the exact same opening of the Aerosmith, and it's in fact in the exact same key, the exact same chords, the whole exact same progression, and the entire song is like a gloss on an old Virgin Mary. And I think that's what's so interesting, because that has now become the cultural reference that everyone knows. It's replaced the Bible. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I love about it. It's a very simple beginning. You hear chords you anticipate, but as you're hearing it and a comment on the older piece. And in fact, the whole song is a remix in a wonderful way. And what's also wonderful about that is there are different ways of passing down and making a tradition live. You know, in classical music, we have a fixed score. It exists. Now, I may play a Beethoven symphony today, but I'm going to play the same notes. But what pop music says, like jazz, which is great, is a score lives by being retold in our voice. So Eminem has Aerosmith live on by retelling it with new words, the same message, but told in his vocabulary. That's what's cool to me about that opening.
Another opening, that of Handel's Messiah. What am I hearing there?
You know, fantastic. One of the things, though, and we keep coming back to the same point, is the things we hear the most are often the things we hear the least. I mean, there's probably no one on the planet who has not heard that, either on the radio, in a supermarket aisle, in an elevator. I mean, it's a cell phone ringtone. But again, it's the people we know the best who we often don't listen to anymore. I mean, that is a fantastic beginning. Just those first four notes. Let me write a bad version. He could have written, Hallelujah. No one would have cared. 4 even notes. Hallelujah. Let me make it a little more exciting. Let me speed up the last 2 notes. Hallelujah. Now that's already better. But what really makes it great is that first note, which is long. Not hallelujah, but hallelujah. And it's that swell on that first long note, which is what makes it so ecstatic. You hear the note, you're excited, hallelujah, then sing fast notes. And again, what makes that so great is that, in a way, it encapsulates the whole meaning of the text. What is hallelujah about? We're ecstatic. And it's that one note that grows, and then the fast notes, hallelujah, which is what makes that opening so great. It encapsulates the text. It tells the text's story in its very notes itself.
Well, as we are shifting genres, we go to yet another. The Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band opening. Engineer Toby Shrine is having way too much fun. What do we hear here?
Well, you know, I think one of the things that's great, about everything is that every art form is really based on audiences' expectations. You know, in a way, every piece of art, whether it's a piece of music, whether it's high art, low art, contains in its notes or in its words or in its paint, if it's a painting, a belief about who its audience is, what they're capable of following, and what they bring in with them as a set of expectations. Whenever you start a Broadway show or you start a play, people have an expectation as to what they're going to hear, how long it's going to be, what kind of sounds are going to be there. And what's so brilliant about that Sgt. Pepper is when that begins, no one in the world had ever heard a rock album begin with a sound like that. You know, there are certain few pieces which just completely change what is possible in the universe. And hearing those sounds from outside the world of rock, and then having, a guitar come in afterwards, totally changes the whole frame of reference of what could be on an album. And that album completely changed our sense of what's possible in a piece of how long it could be, what kinds of sounds, the orchestra tuning up, in the middle of it. All of a sudden, anything was possible. And it wasn't a small genre only of electric guitars and a drummer and 3 guys playing guitars. Suddenly, any sound in the universe was possible. So all of a sudden, we're on the edge of our seats with a whole different expectation of what our world can do. And that's what anything that's a great art does. It changes our sense of what's possible, whether it's a Shakespeare play, whether it's Sgt. Pepper, whether it's Eminem, whether it's Hallelujah. It changes our sense of what's possible in the universe.